Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Cream Cheese Conrad with Charlie Chokewagon Davies and Hollywood Heath Pierce. And we are just coming off a fantastic interview with Steve Cherundolo, the head coach of LAFC and our former national team teammate. Heath, you said during the break that Steve Cherundolo is the gold standard now of interviews just based on how he answered all of those questions. I mean, he was superb.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he's always in a tough spot, right? As you know, like last day of the transfer window, new coach at a new club. It'd be really easy for him to be like, not the time, or just give us some junk. But he actually answered quite a few questions, and he was likable. And that's what I was trying to get to with the questions of like, who do you hate on the touchline? Because it's got to be weird for him to be working with John Thorrington or opposite somebody who was maybe a close friend, like Carlos Bocanegra was one of his best friends. He's going to have to face him at some point in some probably awkward way, or us, challenging with questions. It was good to see him sort of tear that wall down and be honest with us. It was awesome.
Charlie, I loved, we kept peppering him with coaching questions and his style. Was there anything that stood out for you with regard to how he's doing it? Because it looks like, and what I thought was interesting when he said he was even keeled, it's very clear on the sideline. I remember that, last night when they played against Club America, one of his players got a red card, and he's on the sideline laughing. I mean, that's kind of how I think I would react, and I think maybe all of us would react, because it's just, you can get upset about it, or you can kind of just see it for what it is. And I feel like he's got a nice understanding, that nice balance of treating his players as athletes, but also as human beings.
And I think it comes across really well that you're not taking soccer/life too seriously, because it is a game. You want to enjoy it, and you don't want to put that unnecessary pressure on a player, because we all make mistakes and it happens. He's done it. He's been through it. So he's seen some of the reactions that coaches have had and the negative effect it can have on a player. Now, I'm sure the next day or that after the game, you have that conversation with the player. I know you made a mistake, but this is how we can fix it, and this is how we move on. So I think what I've taken out of that conversation is the fact that he knows how to manage and have those conversations and keep the spirit high and not be a detractor from the progress he's made on the pitch.
Jimmy, on that real quick, one of the things, and I've said it on here before, but I did the debut matches for Bale and Chiellini. And it's so, like, we get so romanticized by these big name players coming in that we go, oh, look at them having fun in training. Like, they're just so fully immersed in, like, look at this, he's going to be great. Like, we overanalyze all these things because we're so excited about it. But their interviews were the first time that I've seen in this league, two players come in at the stature that they have, at the point of their careers, two different points of their careers, with Chiellini being 37 or so and Bale still having more miles left in his legs. But both of them came in to say, like, I'm here to help the team and support the team. I'm not, like, and to do that, it's a hard thing to get those players to come in and have that sort of perspective, where the videos are of them having fun and Chiellini is buying in every single day. But there's just this mentality where they've come in to immediately have an impact that's not just about, like, now the team evolves around me, because we've all played with DPs where the team evolves around them, right? We've played with the big stars where they come in, they're like, okay, well, now training starts when I'm here. I come in early, I say what my experience is, and I say this is what it takes, and we all react to it. When I'm in a bad mood, the locker room's in a bad mood. And I just don't – it's the first time that I've seen players come in like that and have this type of mentality. I'm not saying that there haven't been other players with good mentalities, but to have that sort of perspective from the start of just being like, there's already an existing team. It's a very good team. I'm here to make that team better, but I'm not here to be the team. And that was kind of cool, and that requires a lot of trust from Cherundolo and Thorrington to be able to analyze that and say, this is a good fit for us, because I'm sure they get chucked hundreds of players all the time that are big names that you've got to be able to be like, oh, sorry, it doesn't make sense.
I also think from a coaching standpoint, because he's at LAFC, because he's in a market where they're going to attract big names, he's going to develop maybe a little bit further as a coach, because he has to balance how he's treating a Carlos Vela and a Chiellini and a Gareth Bale with a Ryan Hollingshead and a Latif Blessing. I mean, these are different guys that have different needs and different understandings of the game and different experience sets, right? And I think that's just going to help him as he continues to evolve. So I actually want to extrapolate his career a little bit, because this next World Cup cycle might be too soon, but I think he could be an excellent national team coach. Now, I want to say and raise my hand and say that I was the beneficiary of Bruce Arena's second stint heading into the 2006 World Cup, where he was going 8 straight years as our national team coach. And I benefited from that. I'm very thankful and grateful that he gave me that opportunity. But looking back, when you see maybe we didn't perform as well as we could have in 2006 in his second time around, when Bob Bradley had his second World Cup cycle, he got fired in that. Jurgen Klinsmann the same. Sometimes I think, despite how much the players might like you, they also need to hear different voices and a different style and a different philosophy just to keep things fresh. And so I'll say that as much as I think Greg Berhalter's moving this along, I think maybe the next World Cup cycle, it should be somebody else. So I think Greg, depending on how we perform, of course, in the World Cup, is probably the heavy favorite to continue to be coach. And I think maybe it comes too soon for Cherundolo. But I think after 26, I think Steve, after 5 or 6 years as an MLS coach, could be ready to make that jump. And I think he'd be great at it. I think he would be great at it. Charlie, do you agree?
Yeah, I do too. But I'm saying another manager who's probably top of the list is Jesse Marsch. I mean, there's no questions asked about that. So I think Cherundolo, this is his first season. So it's going to take a long time.
I know.
We know.
I'm a little biased. I know.
Steve. He's awesome. But this is his first season as a coach. Think about how hard it is to be consistent and to have players come in and out of your squad. I mean, Chiellini is not playing for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Gareth Bale, odds are he's not going to be here for 5 years. Carlos Vela, you never know if this is the last season or not. So you have these big time names and personalities and players, but it's not that you can build 10 years or think about the future, because it could be 1 year. And so to have to adapt, it's a difficult job. So as great as he's doing now, and it's incredible how he's crushed it so far, to be consistent over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that's a big challenge.
Okay. And Heath, are you feeling similar vibes to me with regard to his national team possibilities?
I mean, now that we're all going to get jobs with him, yeah. I mean, I'll back that.
Let's go.
We might be the first sort of like content creators / coaches, where it's like each of us have to wear a chest cam the entire day, and like and we could be in the meal room all together, moving around the salt and pepper shakers as formations, as all great managers do. But no, like I do think he's kind of got this unique from an American perspective, a very unique perspective at the world in terms of how he spent his career. Yes, Greg Berhalter played in Germany for a while. Greg Berhalter played in England, and he had a bunch of experiences. But Cherundolo also started his managerial career there, and he's just got a very different way of looking at things that I could see his trajectory being a national team stop along the way. Having said that, I could also see him, at the right time going back to somewhere in Europe. He just kind of has that well-rounded capability that I think he's going to continue to have options. And based on the early successes, he's still got a lot more to prove, because, they've won Supporters' Shield a couple times. Like, he's got to take them to the next step.
Right.
Success is going to define sort of how far he takes this whole thing. But he seems to have like his temperament. Doesn't his temperament just feel natural and right and very similar to the Steve Cherundolo we knew as a teammate that was a captain and a leader, and kind of that translation into being a coach seems actually real and applicable and like it has some legs to it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, just based on all the things that you mentioned, Heath, in terms of his quality and his decision-making and how cool he was under pressure, really set up well to become a coach. So I'm not surprised he's having the success. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people out there going, but look at the team he's inherited. I mean, that team could coach itself, and maybe it could in some capacity, but he still
didn't make the playoffs last year.
That's true. That's true. But they're having the luxury of getting Chiellini and Gareth Bale not be DPs and still being able to spend a little bit more.
Okay, Jimmy, on the deal front, great.
I'm just saying
on the deal front, great. But that's still a roll of the dice. You've got to get that right. How many times have MLS teams brought in a flyer just to change things, and it just doesn't go anywhere, right? So you're taking a chance on Bale specifically, who never seemed to have the greatest of reputations within the club, although he is a world-class player. In terms of locker room and whatnot, you don't know how these players are going to step in and what kind of mentality they're going to have once they get there. It's really easy to con people over a phone call or over a coffee to say that, I've all got the club's best interests in mind. And then show up.
Well, you have to give a lot of credit to Thornton, because he's the one who built this team, right? It's great that you have Cherundolo there managing, but really he was handed the group by Thornton. Thornton was the one to sign Ilie Sanchez, who has made a massive difference for the squad, just giving them balance. And I guess in terms of development, Cifuentes has taken a huge step forward. Awesome. Now you can give that to Cherundolo. I think Fall, who he talked about having those conversations of being consistent in training, Chiellini and Cherundolo are going to help him for next season, because that's a player you want to build off of for the future. He's had some good moments in MLS so far, but it's a long-term play with him, developing him. And
he
then,
could become, by the way, the most expensive defender to leave this league fall if he gets to where he was. If you've seen the flashes of what he's capable of, and Steve had him at Las Vegas before moving him on, like that's a phenomenal player potentially that you get to have to shape and mold over the coming years.
All right, so let's talk about Leagues Cup. That happened last night. We had a truncated version this particular summer because it's a World Cup year and they want to get it right for 2023, where it's going to be a month long and a lot more expanded with every team in Mexico and MLS participating. But last night at SoFi Stadium, which is going to be a World Cup spot, they got it right. They got all the dimensions right. And the first game of the night was the LA Galaxy versus Chivas Guadalajara. Galaxy won 2-0, which I don't know if that Chivas Guadalajara coach is going to last too much longer. I think they're currently 14th or 15th.
I thought it was Chivas USA for a second.
Well, you know what? That's LAFC too. You know, that's LAFC. Chivas USA
1.0.
1.0. Anyway, so Galaxy actually played pretty well, and their young guys came out and were ready to go. And Joveljic scored again. I think that's 7 in 7 games for him. He's been absolute in fire, or 7 since June. He's been crushing it. And then we saw Club America versus LAFC in the nightcap. There was a sequence, guys, in that game. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, or I don't know if Heath, if you were there. In about the 20th minute, there was a sequence from Club America that was sick. 15 passes, in, back, and through, created a good opportunity. LAFC ended up defending it, and Club America was all over them with regard to pressure. And LAFC played out of it, switched the point of attack, and I stood up in my house and I started clapping. I was like, this is unbelievable that these guys on both sides, because Club America's not having a good season either at the start, at least in Liga MX, and it was just as good as it gets. Champions League, Real Madrid, Barcelona, whoever, like that was as high. I saw an incredible level from both teams, and I want to see more of that. And it did. It kind of went ebbed and flowed throughout that. But there was this sequence on both sides of the ball that both teams played out of some crazy defense, and the defense was super organized. And it was amazing. And I'm like, this is why we need to have these types of games. I don't know if either one of them can find it in Mexico or either one of them can find it in MLS, maybe in the rivalry games. But I like the Leagues Cup, and I like that this exists because I think it creates a great atmosphere and environment, which we saw last night. And I'm excited about the future of Leagues Cup, even though it does slow down the regular season in MLS a little bit. Heath, I'll come to you. What your thoughts on the Leagues Cup overall and the performances last night?
Yeah, I think there's two things that are going to create a national product in the U.S. That's the Leagues Cup or some sort of merger with Liga MX, because it's just so complex when you think about, if you were at MLS All-Star in Los Angeles last year, you would have seen the complexity of it. You had LAFC fans in the stadium. You had LA Galaxy fans in the stadium. You had your corporate fans. You had your Liga MX fans that are club specific. You had FMF fans, USMNT fans. You had all these things in one stadium, and everybody hated everybody. And it was a wild thing. There was fights, brawls, things go like people could not figure out.
So enjoyable.
Yeah. No, I mean, but when you think about soccer culture growing here, you don't want violence, but to see that sort of level of passion and a little bit of confusion in the stadium, because it wasn't, part of the issue for that game at SoFi yesterday, for example, was that there weren't barriered off supporter sections from what I understand. And therefore there is a lot of tension because there was some violence between Club America and LAFC at the All-Star game last year. Someone got hit by a baseball bat. I'm gossiping a little bit, but for supporter safety, that was a bit of an issue, which is why you probably didn't see as many LAFC fans as you would have otherwise. But when I think about that, it's opening up the salary cap so you can have some bad boys in the league that overspend, some people that you love to watch, but you hate them for their spending. And then also having this integration with Liga MX. Those are the two things that I think create a national product where, at least for me, myself, I will watch games over and over and over again, even if it's not my favorite team, because of those types of stakes. And those are and seeing the way that was, the intensity, the atmosphere, the attendance. Yes, it was a doubleheader, but to see all that come together, you can see what the potential of the future looks like.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. Charlie, what were your thoughts watching last night?
I think that when just what he touched on, gaining the popularity of the sport by getting people together to have that vibrant, crazy, attractive, entertaining experience, that's what's going to draw people and get like the popularity, because people are learning for MLS fans, they're learning what Liga MX is all about and learning the players and learning the rivalries. Now you're creating those within MLS clubs as well. It's fire. I'm all about it. I mean, the more competition we can have that is meaningful, not just like a friendly, you're playing for your money, trophies. That's what's going to, I think, elevate this whole competition.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're trying to figure out a creative way to do more and to tap into a natural rivalry with obviously the national.
But Jimmy,
team,
you as a fan, right?
Yeah.
You as a fan, if you're a Galaxy fan, you still don't want Club America to beat LAFC. Like, there's still been this, because of Champions League, there's still this pride of like, MLS needs to prove itself. And a friend of mine was sitting with the Club America fans yesterday in one of their big sections. And he said the common theme was that they are worried about the quality increasing quickly in MLS. Mm-hmm. That is, it is now going to overtake, because it overtook Liga MX in other ways in terms of, clubs having resources and facilities and infrastructure that's different. But now the quality is starting to get closer there, that they are worried. And that's kind of a cool thing. So if you're an MLS fan, you naturally want to see MLS perform well, just like in Champions League against Liga MX teams. And it gives a different level of care that doesn't have to be just like my team or bust. There's more connective tissue in other ways.
Yeah, the president of Liga MX, Mikel Arreola, he went on the show with Herculez Gomez, a friend of ours, and said that they are a little bit afraid that MLS is closing that gap and doing it rapidly. I think that was a nice word to describe it, that gap. And every time we get to step on the field and perform, you're actually getting to see evidence that gap is starting to close. So
for sure it is.
Interesting times, Charlie, because I think we might surpass them at some point. And not only that, I obviously Herc is hilarious on Twitter as well. And one of the things that he does is every time a youth American or a youth international from us signs over in Europe, he puts it out like that, a little cold face or a cold emoji, because we're not hearing a lot of news about young Mexican internationals going over and signing over in Europe, but you're hearing a ton of Americans. And so I think that's another sign.
It's like 5 or 6 players of players that I wasn't super aware of that are in Europe right now that had transfers over the summer from Mexico. And usually they're like Chicharito type moves, where of them. They're massive stars, start in a Youth World Cup and then like escalating. Right now, there's not a lot of them going to Europe. Yeah,
it's interesting. And so that's another sign. I don't know if Charlie, if there's anything that's kind of a red flag for you in a positive way that MLS is gaining on Liga MX.
Well, I would think it's very simple to look at a player like Ricky Puig, who's coming over from Barcelona, who just signed with LA Galaxy today. He's 22 years old. This is a player who's unfortunately getting pushed out of Barcelona because of the financial turmoil that they're in right now. And they're trying to sign all these players that they, invested in, and they need to clear the space, right? And so even players who are established have to be moved if they're not in Xavi's plans. Ricky Puig is one of those players who has had all this potential. He's played some meaningful matches, but now decides to head to LA Galaxy and come to MLS. Mm-hmm. That would not be possible if the league hadn't grown to the point it is now. You're not getting Gareth Bale, who has a World Cup to play in, to come to MLS now and think that this would be good enough for him to prepare. So the league is continuing to grow. It's attracting more talent. The more soccer specific stadiums that are developed, it shows that people are invested in this league for the long term. Plus you have the World Cup in 2026.
Yeah.
Now even more teams and more people around the world are going to be kind of exposed to what this league is all about and what this country is all about when it comes to the sport. So we're heading in the right direction. The trajectory is incredible with Major League Soccer. So
that backdrop of the 2026 World Cup is a significant one.
Yes.
With regard to Ricky, what I think is interesting is that he's only 22, and imagine he comes and does well for the LA Galaxy. They go and sell him and flip him for 10, 15, 20, I don't know, 25 million.
Or you could keep else.
Him yeah, or keep him. But imagine if all of a sudden you had younger European superstars, potential superstars, coming over to MLS to get a couple years of experience and some life experience, and then moving back. I mean, obviously Zlatan did it, right? He came over, then he went to Serie A and just helped AC Milan win the Scudetto last year. So there's an older version of that. But can we start to find a younger version? And Ricky could be one of the first to do that in a meaningful way. So I'm excited about that signing. I'm excited to see how he fits into Greg Vandy's project with the Galaxy. They clearly need some help in a couple different areas. And given his experience and what we've seen of him at Barcelona, I think he could have an Ilie Sanchez type impact on the team, where he just plays really simple and unlocks a lot of pressure and keeps the game moving, and is a nice transition piece from the defense to the strikers up top. I'm sure Chicharito is going to appreciate having Ricky around. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. But yeah, good times, crazy times, transfer deadline. Make sure you're paying attention to all the MLS stuff and anybody else that you follow on social media to get all the latest info. This is an exciting time for MLS.
Steve Cherundolo did say he had to go jump off in the chat that he's got to go find himself a DP.
Yeah, I mean, they got to take advantage of it. They're obviously in a unique position, and there's some big names that are out there. I mean, I still can't believe Isco hasn't signed. I don't think Cavani's signed anywhere. Not that they need another out-and-out striker, but he's just another big name that's floating around. Obviously, Luis Suarez was out there, and I think he was looking at it, but ended up signing back in Uruguay with Nacional, the club that he grew up with. So, but there's other names that are just floating out there that are super talented guys that might just need that opportunity to get it going again. And maybe MLS and LAFC in particular are the teams to make that happen. All right, everybody, we're going to call it an episode here for In Soccer We Trust. We appreciate your support. As always, we have a very, very special show for you tomorrow. Obviously, the European leagues are up and running again. So we're going to have a preview of all the Americans abroad in the Premier League, in the Bundesliga, and Ligue 1. So that should be a lot of fun to join us tomorrow. We'll get off at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We apologize for any technical difficulties we had along the way. We want to thank Steve Cherundolo for coming on, and we wish him the very best signing a DP here in the next 10 to 12 hours before the transfer window closes. So on behalf of producer Des, producer Alex, Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies, Hollywood Heath Pierce, I'm Jimmy Cream Cheese Conrad saying thank you for watching and listening to Soccer We Trust, and we'll see you tomorrow. Later.